That was our first dive into the realities of the music business.
Yeah.
You got to treat it like one and respect it.
Con Funk Shun were taking the world by storm until a secret feud ruined everything, sending the group into a downward spiral. But what exactly went wrong?
Sweat, fights, blood, tears, road, everything.
It started with creative clashes between key members like Felton, Pilate, and McCall Sr, followed by members quitting, non-stop commercial pressure, and behind-the-scenes drama.
It's always put to a vote. To this day, I don't allow voting in today's Con Funk Shun. I make all the decisions.
And that wasn't even the worst of it. The group also faced the tragic loss of Louis A. McCall Sr., who was killed during a home invasion. Add in money issues, shady management, and more members walking out, and you've got the perfect disaster. Let's dive in. It all began around 1969. Louis A. McCall Sr. and McCall Sr. and some friends formed a small band. They needed a name, so they called it Project Soul. At first, they only played at school events like talent shows. They also played at a few small places nearby. It wasn't anything big at first, but it was fun, and people liked them.
We had to pick a name. The name was Project Soul. And once we started playing those small shows at the school and talent shows, we branched out into some of the military bases and other schools.
After playing at school and other small places, they got invited to play at military bases. They also played at other schools and events in the area. People started noticing them more. They weren't making much money, but it was enough to put gas in the car. Sometimes they could even give their mothers some extra money for groceries or bills. That made them feel proud. It felt good to help their families while doing something they loved.
We actually started doing it. We were able to put some gas in the car and give mom some milk money if she needed it.
Soon, the band got a big chance. They were asked to play as the backup band for a group called the Soul Children. This group was from Memphis, Tennessee. By this time, Project Soul had become a well-known band around the San Francisco Bay Area in California. They had grown a lot, and people were starting to take them seriously. They accepted the offer and went to Memphis in 1972. Touring with the Soul Children was a big deal, but the biggest moment came when they played in the Wattstax movie.
Today on this program you will hear gospel and rhythm and blues.
They backed up the famous singer Rufus Thomas.
Break down children, break them down, yo.
That show made them feel like they had really made it. They were now a professional group, traveling, making money, and playing big shows. More people started asking them to play. Big names in the music world began to notice them. Things were moving fast, and it was exciting. Then a man came to them with an offer. He wanted them to make their own music, but he said they had to change the name. He thought Project Soul wasn't good enough for the big stage. The group remembered a band they had seen before. They were called the Nightlighters. The Nightlighters had made some hit songs.
And the Nightlighters had a lot of hits, but they were the backup band for New Birth. And you might know their biggest hit, KG.
They were also the backup band for another group called New Birth. One of their favorite songs from the Nightlighters was called Con Funk Shun. It was a fun, funky tune, and the spelling was different and cool. It stood out. That name stuck with them. So the group decided to change their name. They became Con Funk Shun, just like the song they loved. That name gave them a new start, and from there, things really took off. However, as the 1980s began, their ideas about the band's future started to clash. Felton Pilate wanted the band to stick to their original funk and smooth sound, which had made them famous. He believed that they should keep the groove that fans loved. On the other hand, McCall Sr. felt that the band needed to change. He wanted the band to move toward a more pop style to reach a bigger audience. Cooper believed that this shift would help the band become more popular and sell more records. These different visions led to arguments and frustrations inside the band. It became clear that Pilate and Cooper wanted different things for Con Funk Shun's future. Everyone had ideas. To make things fair, they decided to vote on the songs. Each member had a say. They all listened to different songs and voted on which ones they liked best. That's how they chose which ones would go on the album. After they got a recording contract, they had to keep doing the same thing for every new album. They voted again and again. This happened many times over the years. Sometimes the best songs didn't make it, and sometimes songs they didn't like much got picked instead. It all depended on how people voted. Later on, the leader of the group stopped the voting system. He said voting didn't always help the group. Sometimes people made choices for the wrong reasons. For example, some of the guys who smoked weed would team up and vote together. If you didn't smoke with them, they might vote against your ideas. That caused problems. So, to keep things smooth, the leader took control. He started making all the decisions himself. He still listened to other people, but the final choice was his. Things moved fast in the music industry sometimes. They got an invitation to perform on a popular TV show. They thought it would be a live performance, but when we got there, they were told at the last moment that we had to lip sync.
We were invited to come perform on the TV show, so we're thinking that we're doing it live. And at the last minute, like, oh, no. You do it to a tape and you lip sync. I'm like, oh, really?
They were shocked. It wasn't what they expected, but they agreed to do it anyway. They had to record the song in a studio called Audio Dimension, which was in Memphis. When they went in to record, they worked hard and did their best. The person who owned the studio was impressed with their sound. He told them they were amazing and invited them to come back and record again in the future.
And the producer, was like, yo, you guys sound amazing, and he invited us to come back and record him.
So they ended up recording about 10 or 12 songs at that studio. They felt like he really believed in them and their music. It seemed like he wanted to help them get ahead in the music world. He didn't think about anything bad happening. They just kept working and creating more music. It felt good because they were being invited back over and over. They thought things were going well, and they trusted that everything was going to be okay. They didn't see any problems on the horizon. But after their last session in the studio, everything changed. The studio owner suddenly brought up something they didn't expect. He said, "All right, gentlemen, let's talk about the bill." They were confused. They had no idea there would be a bill.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, this is how we make our money. This is a business. So, your bill is for $10,000. Well, $10,000.
They thought the work they did there was free, but then he handed them a bill for $10,000. They were stunned. That was a huge amount of money, especially in the 1970s. They didn't have that kind of money, and it felt like a punch in the stomach. They didn't know how to handle it, and we felt trapped.
And we're like, oh, we don't have $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, really? Well, if you don't have, I just happen to have this contract, behind my back.
Then the studio owner surprised them again. He pulled out a contract and said, "If you sign this, I'll be your producer, and you'll only work with me. If you sign it, I'll forget about the $10,000 bill." They were caught off guard. They didn't know what to do. It was clear that the music business was full of tricks. They learned that it wasn't just about how good you were at making music. It was also about money, contracts, and how smart you could be. That moment was an important lesson for all of them. It showed them that the music business could be very tricky, and it wasn't always fair.
So that was our first dive into the realities of the music business.
Yeah.
you got to treat it like one, and I respect it.
There was also a painful memory from the early days of Con Funk Shun. This happened while they were playing at Mississippi. That night, Con Funk Shun had a big show planned, and they always liked to use lights, bright clothes, and special effects. One of the big effects that night was a homemade fog machine. The band's BR guy, who was kind of like MacGyver, built it from a large steel drum. He put a heating coil inside it and used a metal basket to hold something called hot ice. He poured water in the drum and turned it on to heat up. The plan was to drop the hot ice in at the right time to make fog for the show. But something went wrong. The man forgot to turn off the heating coil. As the water got hotter and hotter, no one noticed. When it was time to use the fog, the band started playing the song Sarah Smile. The lights were bright and the band wore shiny blue jumpsuits with white platform shoes. Everything looked perfect. Then, the man dropped the hot ice into the water. Because the water was too hot, the drum exploded with steam. The hot liquid splashed all over his stomach and he got burned badly. It was a terrible accident. While the band kept playing, the crew quickly grabbed him and rushed him to the hospital. The audience saw the fog come out, but they didn't know someone got hurt backstage. As Con Funk Shun became more successful, individual members began to focus on their personal goals. Both Pilate and Cooper started to work on solo music projects. This caused more problems within the band. Some members felt that Pilate and Cooper were more interested in their own careers than in the band. They believed that these solo projects were taking attention away from the group and hurting their unity. The band had been known for working together as a team, but now there was a feeling that they were pulling in different directions. The focus shifted from making great music as a band to chasing individual success. This split in priorities caused more strain, and it seemed like the once tight group was beginning to fall apart.
The original members of Con Funk Shun, myself, Felton Pilate, the Reverend Carl Fuller, okay, and then there was Cedric Martin on bass, Danny Thomas on keyboards, Louis McCall on the drums, Paul Harrell on saxophone. And that is the original Con Funk Shun.
Like many other groups, they had to learn some hard lessons about the music industry. These lessons came with pain and money lost, all because they didn't fully understand the business side. One of the members once said something very important. He said it's called the music business for a reason. It's not just about making music, it's also about business. And if you don't understand that part, you can get into trouble fast. The group found out the hard way when they signed their first record deal. They didn't understand what they were signing. The contract looked good at first, but they didn't read all the fine print. That mistake later cost them a lot. Many groups signed contracts without reading or knowing what they meant. They just wanted to make music and become famous. But when the contract terms kicked in, they found themselves stuck. They couldn't make moves or sign with other labels. Sometimes the contracts lasted 5 years or more, and some even renewed automatically without the group knowing. By the time the contract ended, the group might have already broken up, or their fans had moved on. This happened not just to Con Funk Shun, but to many others too. Education in the business side could have helped. If they had someone explain what was in those contracts, they could have avoided many problems. Knowing how to manage money, book shows, and talk to record labels is just as important as knowing how to sing or play an instrument. Their first contract was not fair to them, but they didn't know better. After they got stuck, they learned an important lesson. Michael and Felton were the main faces of the band. They sang lead vocals and played instruments. But most of all, they wrote the songs. When you write the songs, you get more money. That's what happened to Cooper and Pilate. They started getting big royalty checks in the mail. These checks were for the songs they wrote. Cooper said, "I wrote fun," and "Shake and Dance with Me." Then Felton and I wrote Chase Me. These songs were hits, and the money rolled in. While all the band members made around $2,000 to $3,000 a month for playing shows, Cooper and Pilate were getting $20,000 checks just from song royalties. That's a big difference. This went on for over a year. The other band members started to feel it wasn't fair. They all worked hard too, but they were not getting paid the same. This made people in the band angry. They started feeling jealous and upset. The mood in the group changed. People started pulling away from each other. The fun was gone. Cooper remembered that the rest of the band said they should get half of what Cooper and Pilate were making. But Cooper and Pilate were the ones writing the music. They felt they earned that money. The band kept making hit songs and even had another successful album. But the tension kept growing. Every time they had a band meeting, things got worse. The room felt heavy. People didn't smile or laugh like before. Cooper said the band finally told them, "This has to end." So Felton said he would leave. Cooper went along with that choice. After Pilate left, the band faced even more challenges. They went through several lineup changes, trying to find new members to replace Pilate. However, it wasn't easy to maintain the chemistry and sound that had made Con Funk Shun successful. Their fans also began to notice the difference, and their popularity started to fade. Con Funk Shun tried to keep going, but it was clear that things were not the same. They recorded a final album called Burning Love without Pilate. However, this album didn't do well in sales. The record label, Mercury Records, dropped the band after the album failed to meet expectations. By the end of the 1980s, Con Funk Shun stopped performing and recording new music. Their time as one of the top funk bands had come to an end. Although the band had a lot of success in the late 1970s and early 1980s, their 1977 album Secrets sold very well and got a Gold Award in the United States. The same happened with their next albums, Love Shine in 1978, Candy in 1979, and Spirit of Love in 1980. Many people loved their music, and they became very popular. They kept making hits. Got to Be Enough in 1980 reached number 8. In 1981, Too Tight also hit number 8. Sadly, in 1986, the band finally broke up. That was the end of Con Funk Shun for a while. Felton Pilate became a music producer and worked with famous rapper MC Hammer. He helped make Hammer's songs sound great. Michael Cooper also did well. He made 3 solo albums and had some R&B hits. He was doing fine on his own. After Louis McCall left the band, he teamed up with his wife, Linda Lou, who worked as a music business consultant. Together, they started an artist management company in Washington, D.C. In 1989, they discovered a young R&B singer named Keith Martin and decided to manage his career. Linda Lou's experience in the music industry helped Martin get a break. Sadly, in June 1997, Louis McCall was found dead outside a friend's home in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It seemed like he had been killed during a robbery at his friend's house. His wife, Linda Lou, was devastated by the loss and vowed to find out who did it. She worked hard for many years to keep the case active. She even asked the governor of Georgia for help in reopening the case in 2003, hoping to get new information. Finally, in 2007, a suspect named Marcus Clare was charged with the murder. The case went to trial in July 2008, 11 years after McCall's death. For almost 10 years, Linda Lou had to fight for justice. She was upset and frustrated because the case had been closed for so long. She didn't give up, though, and continued pushing for answers. In 2004, the case was reopened. In 2007, the man suspected of killing Louis McCall was arrested in New Jersey. Linda Lou felt relief, knowing that after all her hard work, justice was finally being served. She felt strongly that her efforts would help other families in the area who had been affected by violent crimes. It was a long and difficult fight, but in the end, Linda Lou felt a sense of justice for her late husband. Later in his career, Felton had more struggles. One of the biggest problems he faced was with MC Hammer. He was promised $5.8 million for some work he did, but that money never came.
I had my issues with Mr. Hammer. So I had my legal battles with him trying to get paid.
He had to fight through legal battles to try and get the money he was owed. He spent a lot of time in court, but still never got paid. For him, it was very frustrating and hurtful, was hard to deal with, and the stress affected him deeply. To this day, Felton is still in therapy because of it.
Wow.
That I was not able to get. I'm still going through therapy about that.
Michael and Felton began performing under the group's name. They had to bring in new sidemen to replace them. Even though they were missing some key members, they still managed to bring a lot of energy to their performances. They had to bring in new sidemen to replace them. Even though they were missing some key members, they still managed to bring a lot of energy to their performances. Now, the band still has some original members. Felton and Reverend Carl Fuller are still playing, but they have new members too. One of them is Eric Young, also known as EQ. He plays the bass and is known as one of the best musicians around. He also plays with his own band sometimes. Another member is Kirk K.C. Clayton. He is the music director and plays keyboards. He is from Memphis, Tennessee. KC has played with big names like Howard Hewitt, Glenn Jones, and Cherrelle. He knows music very well and brings a lot of energy to the band. Ron Moten is also part of the band. He plays the saxophone and is from Stockton, California. Ron is known for his strong jazz style. People say he is one of the best jazz sax players you will ever hear. With both older and younger members, the band has a good mix of experience and fresh energy. In the years that followed, the members of Con Funk Shun went on to do different things. While Pilate and Cooper both continued their music careers, the band itself never regained the success it once had. The disagreements between them and the departure of Pilate changed the group forever. The band's split, both creatively and personally, marked the end of an era. The 1980s brought a lot of changes to the music world, and Con Funk Shun couldn't quite adapt. Their story is a reminder of how important it is for a band to stay united, but also how different visions can sometimes pull people apart.